Welcome to the Growlers and Gremlins podcast, an alcoholic adventure in cryptids, paranormal, and the occult. Coming to you weekly from the heartland of America.
Hi, welcome to the Growlers and Gremlins podcast. Okay.
Growlers.
Growlers.
Try again. Welcome to the Growlers and Gremlins camping special.
Hi, welcome
Starring
to Growlers
Jessie.
and Gremlins. Shut the fuck up, Brian.
Oh.
Okay. Hi, welcome to Growlers and Gremlins camping special podcast. To my right, I have John. To my left,
Jason.
directly
I don't even
in
get
front of me.
I was going to say, you introduce John.
Yeah, I
you
know.
say,
I fucked
and
that
then
up.
you just stare at me.
I fucked that up.
Take three.
Take three.
No, let's just keep going.
No? Okay.
Yep.
That's Brian over there.
Yep, we got Brian. You know who the fuck it is.
They put me in the corner.
And then today our beer is from Kona Brewing Company from Hawaii. We got the Big Wave Golden Ale.
Actually smells
It's
good.
a little hoppy.
It smells really good.
Yeah, it doesn't taste great.
Yeah, it's a baby beer. It's only 4.4% alcohol.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, it's light. You could slam
It's sweet and tasty.
them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so our camping special.
Is this even a like full-size bottle? This feels small.
No, it's not.
No, it says 12 ounces.
Yeah.
I thought a full-size bottle was 18.
No. It's 12.
No.
Cool. So what are we talking about?
Well,
So
right now, this beer.
right
All
now,
right,
we're
fine.
talking about this
This is good beer. I like
Beer.
it.
liquid.
It's okay.
It's just, it feels like
Liquid
small.
Aloha. Or
Hmm.
Aloha.
Ever tell you about the time I was in Jamaica?
No.
Okay. There's no topic to this episode anyway.
Yeah,
It's-
not
we
really.
have to at least talk about the
yeah, we're
camping
going to talk
trip.
about our
Yeah.
camping trip.
Like this is
But this
a collective
the
episode.
taste of my complaint about like the bottle shape making it seem small reminded me of Red Stripe.
yeah.
I love Red Stripe. And there was this time I was in Jamaica and I was at this thing where like we were taking this bus around and doing a bunch of different things. And we had just climbed up Dunn's River Falls, which is like a kind of a journey. It's pretty tiring. You hike up this waterfall for however long it is. And we get back to this area and somebody was selling beer. I was like, ooh, I want a Red Stripe in Jamaica. That'd be really refreshing after this. So I got 2 Red Stripes. And then it was like, oh, time to get on the bus. And I was like, can we bring drinks on the bus? And like some people were like, I don't know, probably not. I was like, oh no. So it was like 100 degrees outside. I'm sweaty and exhausted. And I chugged 2 Red Stripes and got on a bus in Jamaica. Like where they're driving crazy. The roads are not good and the bus had no AC. So I was just miserable the rest of the day after that.
Gut full of beer sloshing around on a bus.
No food. 100 degrees.
Yeah, I hadn't had any food.
Well,
Okay.
it is the camping special. We had our camping trip. It was a success, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's first explain.
Nobody died.
Nobody died.
Yeah.
No one was injured.
Let's explain the rules John set out for this camping trip.
So the original rules for this camping trip. Many amendments were made over time, but the original plan for the camping trip was that we were going to have us a little bushcraft build-off. Everyone was going to go out there with only what they could fit in a backpack, just like some survival gear, some tools. We were going to each build our own shelter and then try and like get our own food and things like that. Just kind of live off the land for a day. Then I made an amendment for Jason, and that's where I went wrong. Because Jason was like, well, what about a large tarp?
It's not a tent.
And
I shouldn't have told you what I was going to do. And just
I was
done
like,
it.
well, I guess technically it's not a tent. And I was like, whatever, I'll let him do that. He'll be the only one, and he'll look like a fool. Well, everybody brought a tarp except me.
I did not bring a tarp.
No, you didn't. You brought a very
poncho.
large. Yeah,
And a poncho
that's fair.
you can use for multiple things.
I know, and I don't complain about it.
It would be a part of my camping gear regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But Yeah, basically, we had this plan for a while. We looked at the forecast and we we're like, all right, it's going to be like 60, and at night it's only going to get down to like 45. Let's do it. So we go, and Jason gets to my house first, and we're going to go. And I say to Jason, you know, I just had this feeling this morning when I woke up that I bet when we pick up Brian, he plans on digging some sort of a shelter for himself. So I'll bet he's going to come out holding his bag and a full-size shovel that won't fit in his backpack.
Yeah, because the rules originally, you can only bring what you can fit in a backpack.
Yep. So we pull up to Brian's house, and out comes Brian, backpack in hand and full-size shovel in the other.
Called it.
Could have put it in the bag if I really wanted to.
Yeah. But,
So I guess let's start with the bags, right?
yeah.
I'm not even going to talk about picking up Jesse.
But nothing really
Then we
happened.
picked up Jessie and went to the campground.
Yeah, nothing really happened.
But what's most interesting? Well, we'll talk about bags first.
So, I mean, you said, what, 21 pounds for your bag?
24.4 pounds.
24.4. You had like 23.
I never actually got to
Jesse's
weigh
weighed
mine,
roughly the same as
they were
mine.
very, very
Anywhere
close.
between 23 to 25 pounds.
Yeah.
They were almost identical in weight.
Brian's was probably the lightest pack.
About 6 pounds.
Yeah, about 6 pounds. It's the lightest and smallest of bags.
I have no camping knowledge.
Which
And
that
one-
should have been a red flag at the beginning for us when we saw how small Brian's bag was.
True.
We should have said, go back inside and pack.
Don't get ahead of yourself. I have no knowledge of camping. I wanted to be prepared for any and all situations. I ended up with a 43-pound pack.
That hung down below his knees because he had a giant sleeping bag hanging off the bottom of an already very large pack.
Yes. But everything I packed was either used by myself or someone else.
Yeah.
It was
That's true.
communal, like, you know, we helped each other out. Who didn't bring tool? This
Yeah,
tool.
because
who
Jason
didn't bring
basically
that.
strapped a camper to his back.
Basically, yeah. He had a toilet, a shower.
Which made the hike out to the campground a lot of fun for Jason because we were walking through a lot of woods, and I was behind Jesse, and he hopped over this little creek thing. And I was like, oh, and then I hopped it, and right behind me, I hear Jason go, as soon as he saw it.
Yeah, so a little background on me. I'm a software engineer. I sit at a computer all day, every day. And
Jesse and I sit at computers all day, every day.
Every day.
Yeah, but you still work out in the morning. I don't even do that.
I don't do that.
So I was dead before we reached the campsite to even start camping. That was a lot of fun.
Which definitely showed in your shelter, which I'm going to put pictures on the Facebook and Instagram of each of our shelters. But Jason had these grand plans for making this like teepee-like structure out of this tarp because it was a very big tarp. Like you could have done a lot with it.
It was a nice tarp.
10 foot by 10 foot.
He settled for just like tying one side of it to some trees to become like a windshield.
He made a quick little
wedge.
hooch. It was a hooch.
But it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, I technically fulfilled the requirements.
Yeah.
I mean, he built
No, you
himself a
And it
rain shelter.
It worked.
Wind
It
and
did
rain
rain,
shelter.
and it kept him dry.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot less work than what you originally planned.
So
After 15 minutes,
if we're
the-
talking
the hutch was up.
if we're talking a hasty situation, then
Ideal.
more ideal.
What he made was a hiking shelter.
Yeah.
If you were going to go hike the Appalachian Trail or something, and every single night you need to make another
Right.
structure, he has the ideal structure for just like sleep and go.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think what really
It was an
summed up,
overnight structure, a one-night structure.
what summed up my experience was fulfilling the requirements with the least amount of effort possible. That's how my camping trip went. Now let's talk about some of these other structures that sprung up.
Yeah.
Let's start with Brian's.
What about Brian's?
Brian
A mud recliner.
Yeah, Brian dug a dirt recliner in the side of the.
I did.
Embankment.
I got a hill that was a rain wash down into this little creek that we ended up building around. Well, me and Jesse did. Everybody else could fuck
It was
off
just
to their own.
a low area up above the
It was
creek.
obvious a little creek goes through there when it rains too hard. But I had decided to build into the side of it So I took my shovel and I cut off a straight sheer wall into the side of this little running area, and then pushed all the dirt that I cut out into about a 7-foot long sitting area with a flat earth. And then at the top of it, I cut out a little section so I could put my backpack up there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I ran a couple, probably 6-inch logs, about a foot into the ground. Got up, tied them all off with some paracord, thick paracord.
I think of everybody out there, he was like the busiest, like second busiest beaver running
absolutely.
around.
Just chopping wood all day, just for the hell of it.
Well,
It's
even
like,
before
where's
he-
Brian? And then we hear thunk, thunk. He's just hitting something with a hatchet.
But I mean, it was technically impressive. He did build a roof over it. He used his tarp to cover it up.
Yep.
But it was a functioning shelter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that I
It
built
was-
into
The only
earth.
problem with Brian's shelter, I think, is that it was too small. Because
Yeah.
he couldn't fully lay down in it.
I could.
Because, well, your tarp actually reached over and covered the other side, too.
Yeah.
So you actually had more, like, wind block
he
than
made
Jessie did.
Yeah.
Even though you guys have very similar structure styles. But yours seemed more made for sitting up.
Yeah.
And you didn't set it up very well for your fire to heat you.
No.
Yeah, your fire was
his
too
core
far.
would have been far away from any fire sitting outside the structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have had to have put it about 4 feet closer from where
I mean,
Jesse's
like
sat.
technically, like I could have moved like my fire closer, and
It would have been
would've-
where your feet would have been.
right, and it would have been
Splitting the
okay
difference.
for both of us. Yeah,
Yeah.
So Jesse made what he calls a hooch.
I didn't make a hooch. No,
Oh, I thought you said it was a hooch.
no,
He
he
made-
made a hooch. You make
Oh.
a yeah.
So, all right. So Jesse's structure we would have described as the dirt couch.
Yeah, the couch.
Yep,
The
dirt
cozy couch.
The cozy couch, because it definitely turned into that.
Yeah. We'll get to
So
that.
much like Brian, I dug a flat spot out on the side of a little embankment to fully lay down on, and then basically just made a roof coming off the side of a hill. So I only had 2 posts to basically be my main support for my structure, and then covered the top. I mean, obviously, I said I had a poncho, so I used for a base roof, but then used sticks, leaves, everything else to cover the rest of it. Poncho wasn't quite big enough, and basically it did form a couch.
Mhm.
Had my fire right outside of it, so you could definitely feel the fire, and it was still safe enough. It wasn't gonna like burn down my shelter,
Yeah.
So
It just burned Brian's boots.
right, it burnt the shit
we'll
out of
get
my yeah. We'll get to
Don't get
that.
ahead of yourselves.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that point.
So my plan was to try to build a structure out of only natural materials and only use what I brought. My goal for the day was to not borrow anything from anyone, only use what I brought and build my shelter with nothing but natural materials, which was easier than I thought, but very tiring.
Yeah, I think you
It took a lot less time than I thought.
Well, I think you expended the most effort in building your structure.
But I have the longest term structure because I'm going to be able to use that the next time we go. But what I did was,
Can't wait to burn it down.
well, first I cut down a big tree, and had to. I found a tree with like a perfect split fork in it, and I cut down that tree, and then I had to dig a post hole because that was going to be my main support beam. So luckily the ground was soft enough that I was able to use my hand and a machete, because I didn't bring a shovel, to dig like a 3-foot post hole in the ground, and I stuck my support beam in there and then cut down 30 or so more trees.
Yeah.
Easily.
Built a
You deforested the local area quite a bit.
but I built a
It's just saplings. It's
yeah,
all right.
yeah, it's all small
They'll grow
trees,
back.
but I built a solid wood A-frame structure. But it just took a long time. But it could fit 2 people. It was cozy. It kept the sun off you, and it still needs a little more debris on the outside. We kind of cleared the area pretty
I
well.
think we clear the debris off, mix up some mud.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. Use some of that clay I was finding in the ground, and also some sod.
Yep.
But I was not going into that effort today. Or that day. Next time, I'm going to finish that thing up. But it was nice. It was cozy, and it worked for me until Brian.
What Brian did?
But
So the next task was starting a fire,
yes,
which Jesse got started on first.
there's some news you don't know on that, which we'll reveal to you in a bit.
On my
the fires. No, I'll tell him.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wanted to make sure that I got my fire going before it started getting late and panicky about, the temperatures dropping. So, and you get a little fire going. They're easy to fire up later, if it does burn out. So I had my little fire starter ferro rod just going to town on the damn thing, and mine just were not putting off a whole lot of spark. It would have happened eventually, I'm sure, but the leaves, they don't burn. They just smolder. So you're not going to really start much of a fire with them. I mean, get enough of them, you might get something going, but I wasn't having a whole lot of luck. And then I remembered that I had napkins in my bag. So I was getting tired of it. So I grabbed a napkin, still use my ferro rod and everything, and just use that for something that'll actually light up. And eventually I did get my fire going.
Now, I was the second one to get a fire going.
Yeah.
But I did use only leaves and sticks and a ferro rod.
Now, to be fair, Brian and I did not start trying to put a fire up until you guys had already done it and gone off to go fishing.
Yeah.
No, I think he was already working on it when we walked away.
Yeah, I was.
Was he?
Yeah.
Well, you also had a nice big ferro rod that would shoot off some serious spark.
Well,
So
that's
that
the
helps.
second aspect of my camping was capitalism for the win. I spent probably the most out of anybody on gear specifically for the trip.
Yeah, specifically for the trip. I probably brought the highest dollar value of gear out there because I brought, what was it, $500 and some in knives alone?
Yeah, you were the Jared Leto of the camping trip.
Jared Leto. Oh, knives, the Joker.
Yeah.
I watched that movie recently, and I was about to take a picture and send that to you guys and be like, this is me. That part where the Joker's just laying surrounded by all those knives.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, man. It's so me.
John does love his knives.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
So, any remarkable things about you starting a fire?
I think I'll let John tell it.
I'll tell the story.
Okay.
Me and Brian had a joined effort. So what happened was Brian had, I believe, your ferro rod.
No, I had Jesse.
Or Brian had Jesse's ferro rod. I had my ferro rod. I had ferro rods that were really nice. They're 6 inches long, super thick. They throw sparks like crazy. I spent an hour feather sticking ahead of time and making a bunch of kindling. So I get going, get a little fire going, gust of wind. Blows all my kindling apart, puts everything out. So I start again, do it again, blows it all out. And I see Brian, and he's got a bunch of smoke coming up and a little fire. And I was like, what did you do? Is the wind not screwing you up? He's like, oh, it is. It's been awful. I was like, all right. Kept going. Got a blister on my hand from scraping my ferro rod. And so I walked over there, and I was like, you know what, Brian, screw it. Give me my lighter. I don't care. I'm using my lighter because the wind just keeps screwing me every time. As soon as I took the lighter from him, he goes, I used a lighter too. And I was like, we just won't tell anyone.
Oh, yeah.
Because I started 4 different fires with the ferro rods and the bunch of kindling that I made. And then by the time that it kept blowing it out, I was out of kindling. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and make a bunch of kindling again. I'm just going to take a torch to a bunch of leaves. Because I was so sick of it. I was so angry at that point.
Yeah.
Because it was where I was, it was like a wind tunnel. It sucked.
Yeah.
But you picked that location.
I know. I didn't know it'd be so windy.
No, what had sucked was that I had actually started an actual fire, and I got it to be not decent, but it was a starter.
Yeah, dude, me too.
It's I'm feeding it leaves, I'm getting the sticks on there.
And then it'll just go out.
Yep, the wind blew through one heavy gust that I thought caught my hair in the fire. And I was like, fuck, and I pulled back, and then next thing I know...
Yep, whole thing goes out.
Nothing's left smoldering or burning. It's and that's when I decided I'm just going to use the torch.
So we'll say Jason probably won the fire.
Yes.
I didn't cheat. I did it,
I only use a napkin.
Yeah.
I used a blowtorch.
And Brian used a fucking
If I had a
blowtorch.
napkin, it would have gone fine.
Yeah, it probably would have been all right.
It was just
I
like
had lighters.
I was so mad.
I didn't
'cause,
use
like,
any lighters.
I took all that time to make all that kindling, and then just like a gust of wind, just
I was trying to feather
all of it
stick
burned
shit,
through
but-
all my kindling. It
Okay.
sucked.
So the next goal was food.
Yes,
Yes.
All right.
Food.
So,
there were 2 camps on food.
well, yes. Well, okay. First of all, fuck you.
What?
Because you're like, oh yeah, there's a creek running right through the camp area.
There is.
Yeah, it's like maybe a foot deep.
If that.
Yeah.
It's a creek. It's
You're
not a
not-
river.
You're not fishing in that creek.
Wait, that's why I bought a fishing pole to begin with, because he's like, oh yeah, it runs right through where we're going to be
I also
camping.
told you there was a pond.
Yeah, you told me there was a stocked pond,
Yeah.
which ended up working.
Yeah, of course it did.
Yeah,
Jesse caught
Well-
a fish for the first time in his life.
it worked for me. It was an event for Jessie.
Oh,
Still
yeah.
worked.
So I made a fishing pole and everything, and it was working fine. It was just I couldn't get it to like cast out very well. So like if we were on a dock or something, then my makeshift fishing pole would have been perfectly fine. But so I'm working my little fishing pole thing, and I feel like it's going fine. He catches a largemouth bass on about the second cast, and I was like, "Holy shit, dude!"
A little background. This is that probably sucked for you too. Like
What?
just like him throwing it in like second cast, catching a bass. But like, if you couldn't catch a fish in that, man, like, that pond was actually my grandparents dug it themselves. They rented an excavator, dug the pond, and then paid to have it stocked with a whole bunch of bass and bluegill and all kinds of different fish because they just wanted it as a fishing pond. And the rule was always no one was ever eating anything. They'd always just throw it back, and nobody's fished it in like 3-4 years. So it's like bred to capacity.
Yeah. Which I mean, me and Jason were like, yeah, it's a pond. It's stocked full of fish. Like there shouldn't be any issue getting fish.
It still takes work to do it though.
Yeah, but we fished, and it's almost like the fishing part. That's not the hardest. That wasn't the element here.
I actually
It's the filleting the fish.
Keeping your fish from the dog.
having given before that, like there's like a huge layer of algae across this whole pond, and it was really like my 5th or 6th cast because what was happening is my bait wouldn't sink below the algae.
Just sit on top.
Yeah, it would just sit like right on top of this like algae raft.
Yeah.
And eventually I found a hole, and I actually thought I had hit the ground. So I didn't even start reeling in right away until it pulled back on me again. I'm like, wait, what? Oh, I have something. And I brought it up, and me and Jesse like, well, what do we do now? I'm holding the fish down. He's got my pliers pulling the hook out, and I'm like, well, I have a stringer. Go grab that. And so we put the fish on the stringer. I throw it back in the pond, and I just sit on the edge of the pond, just holding the other end of the string, like my little pet fish. I got it out for a walk, and he borrows the rod. I'm thinking, it'll 5 or 6 casts for him too. How long were you out there?
Oh, we were out there for another 20 minutes at least because
Now, in the realm of fishing, though, 20 minutes is not long to wait for a fish.
No, we really did. We
that's still
got
great.
food pretty
Yeah,
quick.
that's great.
Really. I mean,
But what I noticed about him fishing was he cast it out there. Oh hell! And he reeled it back in as fast as he could.
It's not a lure.
And he cast it.
yeah.
Yeah, you were like booking it, bringing that hook back in. I'm like, slow down, take your time,
Like I said, I don't know how to fish.
So the whole time I'm just sitting there holding my fish.
I was mainly like fighting because it was like the open reel fish pole, and like I'd cast it out, and a whole wad of string would go out with it. I'd have to basically restring.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell you were
reline the
doing.
whole thing. I don't know either. I mean, I held the line and everything like how you do with those, and it's just every once. I mean, I would get it to cast plenty of times just fine, but every once in a while it would shoot a whole wad of line out. But
Yeah, I still gotta it's still knotted up from.
it is.
Yeah, I haven't.
I thought I
worked on
fixed it.
No, it's, you remember that little tab for keeping the line from coming out?
Oh yeah.
You still had it like wrapped around that and then around the reel.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
So
Just put a weight on it and throw it in
I
the field.
I did come up with a crappie. It was not a bluegill, come to find out. Got a crappie, and being so excited, I was like, dude, I got a fish too. Like, we're good, man.
Take a
Let's
fucking
go.
picture of me.
And then, we did not take any pictures, of course.
Didn't happen.
Yeah. And then come to realize after the excitement was down, I probably should have caught a couple of fish.
Or at least put that one back and get a real fish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, crappies are good. It's just like bluegill. It's good eating, but you have to catch a couple of them if you want a meal.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I think you lost a lot of meat in the filleting process.
Oh, yeah. Because I had no idea what I was doing.
Which, again, why we filleted it in the first place, I have no clue.
Instead of what?
Just cooking it.
Just
stick.
scale it and just cook it whole.
Skewer it, put it over the fire.
We had
There's that.
pans.
I think you were good to fillet the bass. I think that the crappie should have been cooked whole.
Well, you can do either. When you know what you're doing, you can get a good amount of meat off of it, just fine. But I didn't know what I was doing.
Exactly.
And now that and now that we've come back and everything, I've watched 10 videos on filleting crappie. I'm like, oh yeah,
So you're a master now.
Well, I mean, I have a much better idea now.
You're not going to shove the blade all the way up into the body cavity when you're trying to.
And I gutted my fish too, and you don't even have to do that.
Really?
Yeah, you don't have to do any of that. We did quite a few steps that were probably proper for certain other kinds of fish, but for crappie, it's minimal work. It doesn't take anything.
One of the big things I learned on that trip is that bushcraft and things like that, they're nowhere near as hard as the people who do them want you to think they are.
Oh yeah, no.
Well, it's really not hard to do these things.
When it comes down to memorizing certain things, let's say,
knowledge
plants.
of herbs you can eat and use for medicine, things like that. There's a lot of knowledge, but the actual physical doing of these things is not very hard. Jason was giving me a bunch of crap you're just going to be in a pile of sticks, and I was like, I think it'll be all right. Turns out it's super easy to build a shelter.
Oh yeah.
It takes a lot of calories, but it's easy.
And you didn't even use any 550 cord or anything.
Nothing. Yeah, I brought paracord. Paracord was the only thing I brought that I didn't use. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I would continue to bring that anyway, just in case.
Yeah, I didn't even use my paracord.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you had the
little bungee straps.
Mm-hmm. But Brian and I
used a shitload of paracord.
Okay, so we had one fillet knife.
Yep.
He used it forever.
Trying to figure out what the hell
and I'm just sitting there with this fish all right, now
the fish that won't die.
The fish that wouldn't die. Well, because I watched all these YouTube videos ahead of time, and they're like, oh, you got to just bonk it over the head. That's how you humanely kill it before you start cutting it open.
But before that, it was a dog for me.
Well, yeah.
But I bonked it on the head a couple of times. It's still kicking. I'm like, all right, well, I smash it with a rock. It's still kicking. Eventually, I just started, filleting it, and it's still moving. I'm like, this ain't right. Something went wrong here. But no, I got mine filleted and cooked. I had
I salvaged what meat I could. Cooked it. I mean, hey,
you got a Slim Jim's worth of meat out of that.
Pretty much, but I think we proved our point. We caught fish, we cut it up, cooked it, ate it.
Yeah, and in my overpacking, I had cooking oil, I had seasoning, I had a pan. So I actually really enjoyed the fish I cooked. So
the only thing that I would have liked or didn't think of but would have been a lot better is the cooking oil. Because I was frying mine on an aluminum pan. And it takes nothing for anything to stick to that.
Yep.
And I probably lost half my meat just to my pan. So, just it's trial and error.
Okay, so
Brian and I.
Yeah, you guys had a very different adventure.
Being true Americans, we brought guns.
Yeah.
So our plan was, we just brought 22s. We weren't going to try to take down anything large or anything. We were going to try to get some squirrels or maybe a rabbit. And we must have covered every inch of that forest. How many squirrels did we see, Brian?
We saw a single squirrel.
How far away was it?
About 30 feet on the ground.
And then just disappeared.
Yep. It ran into some low growth, that green ground cover, and never saw it again.
Well,
it was a fat squirrel too.
Yeah, we mentioned a few episodes ago. It's awfully strange in Indiana to go deep into the woods and see one squirrel. I mean, usually they're out in numbers that they're a problem. There are so many. But I think there's a clear reason for the problem we were having. And that would be the 200-pound English Mastiff on the property that is so large that my grandma said, oh, yeah, there used to be about 15 or so deer that lived out here, but, he scared them off.
Yeah,
It was the weirdest experience in the woods to spend an entire day and night in the woods and see almost no wildlife.
I mean, we saw footprints.
Yeah, we saw footprints. We saw birds.
Plenty of deer tracks, but again,
A lot of deer tracks.
They could have been the Mastiff too.
But it's
We did
The
see the
Mastiff
Mastiff.
would have wildly different tracks.
No,
than the
I'm
deer.
just saying, I meant, did I say deer tracks?
Yeah.
Okay, I meant the trails. Like there was all kinds of little wildlife trails all over the place.
down in the creek. But the creek's kind of like the border of the property, and so the dog doesn't cross the creek. And so,
he came running down.
and that's the thing is, he
we
came
had to
running out in the creek when Brian and I went to go hunting for squirrels. He followed us, and I'm like, well, great. We're not going to see anything with him with us.
Yeah.
We spent hours out there just roaming around everywhere. We'd sit somewhere for 45 minutes and just see nothing. It was so frustrating. And we were at the point when we got back, I was like, we'll just sit at the camp and keep an eye out. And if it gets dark and we haven't seen anything, we'll just eat our emergency food we brought. By the time we ate, because I didn't eat breakfast or anything that day, I was like, I will only eat when we're camping. I was dizzy. I was about to just collapse from hunger.
That's the other thing. I think both you and I got dehydrated.
We did. We got badly dehydrated because Jason and I both brought these 2.5 gallon jugs of water. But we were so busy doing things that we didn't have the time to just sit down and drink for a little bit. So I was cramping up all through the night. And
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. Why I couldn't even kneel without my legs cramping up.
I don't think I got rehydrated till Wednesday.
See, my problem is I don't drink water on a regular basis, so I probably was dehydrated before I even got out
You
there.
probably were.
I guarantee it.
But,
So you guys
Definitely made cutting up fish a lot easier when you're that level of hungry.
yeah.
That you're just I don't give a shit.
Brian and I had
I'll eat this thing
100%
right here.
failure on food, but I would say that it's no fault of our own.
Yeah.
It wasn't for lack of ability to shoot anything. It was just lack of anything to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
It's just a
Mastiff
huge
that roams that
disappointment.
property probably barked everything.
If you've ever seen
A for effort.
If you've ever seen a 200-pound English Mastiff in person, even when you know he's friendly, you're scared of him.
yeah, 'cause
His mouth is as big as your head.
both Jesse and I were holding our fish to our chest to keep it away from the dog.
Because he liked to pretend like he was gonna nip at you and then run off like a playful puppy. But it's man, if you nip at me, I'll lose my hand. I'm walking with my elbows tucked up when he's around me because I'm
You're sitting here playing. I'm over here losing fingers.
He's royalty though.
He is royalty.
Sir Wilson.
His name is Sir Winston.
So yeah, I missed out on all the hunting stuff because I ate my food and I'm I am
And then you
dead.
took 2 naps.
Yeah, I think I took a total of 2 naps, but
I almost reached the point of frustration with the hunting where I was going to unload every shell I had. Just
that would
into
have
the
really
ground.
helped your cause.
Yeah.
There was no cause.
Yeah, it was a big disappointment, the hunting.
So Jesse and I are both completed that requirement. We both
Yes.
caught food.
I got a wild MRE.
Checks the box.
I
But,
ate 2 Pop-Tarts.
That was
yeah.
given to you
So-
from us.
Yeah. What
Now
emergency food did you
Let's
have?
get
I
into
didn't.
the
I was
evening.
just going to go hungry because I knew it was only for a day.
Well, he also ate gummies on the way there.
But
I had blood sugar.
that's not survival. That's just you knowing for a fact,
Somebody will give me some food.
Well,
They'll feel
that-
bad for me.
No, I wasn't expected to be given any food.
no, that's not good survival because
No, it's
then you're
not.
just be I know we're going to go eat tomorrow. I'll just not eat today. It's no, that's not the point.
No,
So
that's
let's
not
go
the
over
point.
mealtime. What did you guys bring for backup food?
Okay, so for backup food, I brought a good old MRE.
Which one?
It was the spaghetti with meat sauce MRE, one of my favorites from back in the day. And we cooked it up. Well, actually, I didn't even warm mine up because I don't give a shit.
You did warm it with the warming pouch because it
No.
was steaming when I walked over there.
That's because I ignited it or whatever. I triggered it or whatever because you don't want to just leave those things around. And then So we ended up eating our food. I gave Brian some food because, like I just said, he brought nothing.
I brought a cheese tortellini MRE, which was surprisingly delicious. It was really good.
Oh, yeah.
I also gave Brian a Pop-Tart.
Brian got crackers, peanut butter, and
I ate the jelly too.
the jelly. Yep.
2 Pop-Tarts.
But little did we know, Jason brought food for our family.
I am a large man. I was prepared. No, I brought like freeze-dried apple slices, and then it was like this emergency food supply bucket I bought a while back that I grabbed a pouch out of that. And it says only 2 servings.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. Like we all ate from it.
It was.
I didn't.
It was.
Well, you did.
I took like 2 bites. I was like, "This is disgusting."
You've never
I
had.
thought it was good.
Yeah, you've
I did
never
not
had
like it.
bad spaghetti and just went, that's all I got.
Whatever. It's just spaghetti.
It was something about the flavor of the sauce.
Well, it
just
was
off
so-
to me. I
It
didn't like
was
it.
cheesy lasagna pasta, is what it was.
Yeah, and it was more like a like if you're used to Chef Boyardee, it was more like SpaghettiOs.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like just slightly off from what you're used to. But it was still food.
Yeah, but I'd already eaten it. I was like just eating it for
and
fun.
like-
I didn't like it, so I was like, no.
It made quite a bit. Like,
Yeah, it was definitely 4 servings. Like 4 people could have eaten and gotten full.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
at least been perfectly fine for the night.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, the night.
Though the night is very young at this point.
Well, for you guys.
Well, no, because when we started trying to like get a bunch of firewood together, we cut down that big tree.
Oh, I forgot
and then
about that.
we were too tired to deal with it. We cut down this real big tree. And then as soon as we just started hacking at branches, we're all just like, I'm tired. I don't want to do it.
No.
Yeah, we had zero
Which was
energy
a
at that
problem
point.
because we ended up with way too little firewood.
Right. Well, I didn't even like after I cooked, I didn't even bother maintaining my fire. My fire was completely out long before. I didn't even have a coal to relight it. So
Yeah, all the hatchets and blades went dull,
So
and we were just like, nah.
Mine didn't go dull. The
speaking of
handle
equipment-
came loose.
yeah. Well, speaking of equipment, I think both Jesse and I got the same axe that has like the screw-on handle.
Yeah.
And-
Trash.
the Amazon special.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was not recommended.
If there was ever a justification to spend more money on equipment,
Yeah.
it was
But
learning from
in
that
my mind,
thing.
in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah, there's like 4 sections of this handle. It can be a long shovel. It can be a long axe. You're like, yes, perfect, awesome, great.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to be subpar at any one of those jobs versus just having a good hatchet and a good shovel.
Well,
So-
the thing that I brought that I probably used the most throughout the day was a budget item that would be a great thing to add to your
Mine too.
collection, because I brought the Cold Steel Warhawk, and it's a tomahawk that's only like $45, and that thing was amazing. It didn't go dull. It was just solid all day long, and then eventually it has the handle is like screwed together, like it's a fiberglass handle with the tomahawk head and everything, and then it's screwed through the handle. The screws started to back out a little bit throughout the day, so I stopped using it at the evening
And we can
because
still
I was like, it's kind of dangerous.
we still got to remember the true MVP of tools, the Camelus machete.
Yes,
I was gonna say
Jesse and I
my
both
hatchet.
No,
another-
your Harbor Freight hatchet was pretty garbage, dude.
It worked for me all day.
yeah, but the Camelus machete.
Is it Camillus?
Camelus?
I think it's Camillus.
Camillus?
Yeah.
I bought the knife, by the way.
Which knife?
The knife that it's just like a knife that's by Camelus.
Oh, one of their knives. Yeah, that machete. They make a machete. It's called the. What do they call that machete? Was it the carnivore or
It was the carnivore, like.
Well, we had two
Inject.
different models of it. I had the carnivore, and you had the inject.
Mm-hmm.
And they're extremely similar, but these machetes, they're like titanium coated with a saw back. They're like 1/4 inch thick.
Yeah.
They were incredible. I mean, that was
Super,
my main
like,
digging
really
tool.
sharp, very strong, stayed stayed sharp enough.
And only $30.
And yeah, like this machete is $26 at Walmart.
This is the equipment review portion.
Yeah.
Like,
well, another tool that got used by multiple people was the chainsaw with the paracord handles.
yep. Mine worked really well too. Mine didn't have paracord though. Mine had straps, nylon straps, and yours had paracord, but they were the same saw,
Yeah.
just different handles, which was weird. But Jesse's saw was
saw,
absolute trash.
yeah.
It worked.
So like my saw I got from Amazon, it was cheap, very cheap, maybe $9 if that. And so when I first got it, I took it out to a tree in my own section of woods, used it, and I was like, cool, it really works. So that's great. And when we went out camping, I thought I lost mine or didn't bring it for some reason. Used Jason's, it was incredible, clearly different than mine. And then I finally found mine. I started to use it, and it was just not going.
So the difference was that Jason's and I's both had like actual chainsaw chain, where yours had like a bike chain with some sharpened tips on it.
Yeah.
Like it was so weird looking.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a total hunk of shit.
But yeah, one of the
It had
things,
nice handles on it, though.
one of the things that was funny though is that you and I had packs of about the same size, of the same weight, and then like later in the night when I went to change my clothes, you're like, how did you fit clothes there? I was like, dude, I got a gun in here. Like,
Yeah.
I think Jesse needs to work on his organization in his pack.
I mean, I had clothes. I had like basically like long johns set in there, my blanket, poncho, but like for some reason it was like I didn't have a lot of stuff, but it
filled it up quick.
Completely filled my bag to the point where it was like damn near gonna bust the zippers out. But also I didn't have hardly anything hanging off the side of my bag. It was all inside the bag.
The only thing on the outside of my bag was my machete and my knife, both of which could have fit inside. I just wanted them on the outside because it looked cool.
I didn't quite understand like how like John brought almost the same amount of stuff and he had so much room in his bag. And it's not like my
strategic packing.
Yeah, but it's not like my stuff was just shoved in there all willy nilly. Like it was folded, whatever. It was
I
weird.
don't know how that happened, man.
Strange.
Because our packs were like, if anything, capacity wise, yours is probably larger than mine.
I would think
liters.
so. I would think so.
But I don't know.
Meanwhile, my pack was filled inside and out.
You could have fit a person inside yours empty.
Mine was a 65 liter.
Yeah, 65 liter. I brought a 31 liter.
Mine's probably about the same.
Yeah. But I also brought things that were really, really dumb. Like that grill rack. Yes, we used it a lot.
Oh, it was awesome.
It was nice to have, but that was not bushcraft camping. That was, yeah.
I don't want to count it up, but I was just thinking, I probably had over $1,000 on my back today.
Well, just your knife collection alone.
Or my bag.
Oh, yeah.
My bag was like $200.
Yeah, wow. I only spent like $60 on my bag.
Yeah.
On Amazon. And it's a 3-day bag that I used to have the exact bag by Condor. And this was just like
Condor.
It's just a Amazon. My bag now is just an Amazon knockoff of the Condor 3-day bag. Yeah. And I loved that bag. I could, so I was like, cool, I'll get it. It's probably the same thing. It's probably not as quality, but
yeah,
whatever.
I was like, this is going to also be my bug out bag. So I was like, I'm just going to get a good bag.
Yeah.
I got a direct action Ghost Mark II, which is a Polish company, I believe. But it's a 3-day pack.
My bag may as well be brandless.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the juicy part of the night.
Well, let's get to the first part of the night first.
The first part of the night?
Where you fell asleep at like 9:45.
Which is actually a normal time for me, so fuck you.
Yeah, that's pretty normal, but it was like the sun was still kind of peeking out. But so we all go to our shelters, and we're, resting, preparing to go to sleep. We all got our little fires going. I put an emergency blanket down as ground cover for me, and Whoopee over me and kind of wrapped around me like a sleeping bag. Yeah. Jason, you had?
I had an actual sleeping bag rated down to negative 19 degrees. I actually, because...
Money.
Yeah, it was.
How much was that sleeping bag? I'm really curious.
I'll look it up for you. I don't remember. But
I'm going to guess $79.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't crazy high, but...
My initial Amazon order for the majority of my gear was $600 total. That's my tarp, that's my bag, that's my my shovel, my axe, all of that together.
Holy shit!
My hiking boots, because I own no boots.
This podcast is bringing in too much money.
No,
all these sponsors.
Yeah,
no, it's all
these tactical gear sponsors.
Hey, if anyone would sponsor us, maybe it would be people like that,
like tactical gear places.
Yeah, because they don't care.
Big Daddy Unlimited.
But anyway, so I actually got wet while I was cleaning my fish. So I the only change of clothes
from that murder, did you?
The only change of clothes I had was a pair of gym shorts and another t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually sweating inside that sleeping bag just wearing those two things.
Mm-hmm.
So, sleeping bag for the win, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, I was cozy.
No. Sleeping bag, not
everyone
for the
was
win.
Cozy until a certain point in the night. What happened is...
Wait. So, Jesse, what did you have for sleeping?
So, what I had was the Whoopee blanket, from the military. I had that on the ground, which you could fold it over, have it over as a blanket as well, and a fire. That is what I had to sleep with.
Brian, what did you have to sleep with?
No, John, what did you... Oh, wait, you went first, didn't you?
Yep.
All right, so what did I have to sleep with? I had the clothes on my back and a painter's tarp on the ground. There was no insulation.
And before I went to sleep, you also had socks on your arms as well.
What were the clothes on your back, Brian? No, I'm not talking about what I gave you, but
what were you wearing?
What did you originally try to go to sleep with?
The clothes I was wearing. A t-shirt, a white beater, jeans, boots
a white
on.
beater, jeans, boots. That's it. No long sleeve gear, no blanket,
nope,
nothing. He was going to outmuscle the cold.
I have before in the past. I thought I could do it again.
Well, you definitely fucking didn't that night.
Nope.
So here's where it got interesting, because what started all of this is a possible UFO.
Okay, this is the first.
I told Jesse about it. There's Kevin.
We left the door open.
Pull up one of those chairs so you can join in on this. Okay. But
one second. So Brian, I'll look over. I'm all cozied up to my fire. I'm laid out. I'm getting comfy. I look over. Brian's got knee-high socks up to his elbows, and he's just like curled up, and I could tell the motherfucker's cold.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And then
at this point, I'm already unconscious.
You've been unconscious for 2 hours.
Already listening to Jason snore. And so I look at Brian. I'm like, Brian, I got a long sleeve like waffle top in my bag if you want it. And he's like, I think I'll be all right. And then, and I'm like, okay. And so I sit there, lay for a little bit longer. About 20 minutes goes by, and Brian goes, "Hey, is that waffle top still up for grabs?" And I'm like, yes, Brian, you can have the waffle top.
This is all before I got there.
Oh, yeah. This is long before John showed up.
At around midnight, I've been like going in and out of sleep, and I'm in a weird spot because I can't see anyone from my shelter because my walls block everybody off. And I'm laying there, and I don't know if anyone's awake. I know Jason's snoring because I can hear him. And I just hear this noise that's like... almost like when you hear a car driving down a highway and it's like that wah noise. I heard it and I was like, where is that coming from? Because like there are no roads around here that are even close to a highway or that someone could drive fast enough on to produce that sound, because they're all just like these bumpy little curvy country roads. And I was like, oh, whatever, maybe it's a plane or something. But it just went on for like 5 minutes without getting louder or quieter. It was just there, droning on. And then it stopped. And I peek out and I see Jesse's like tending his fire. So I went out there. As soon as I stepped out of my shelter, I was like, whew, it's cold. It's really cold out here. So like, I go over there and I was like, Jesse, did you hear that? And he's like, what? And I told him about it. And he's like, no, I didn't hear anything. I was like, all right. And then we look over at Brian, and Brian's like, I'm freezing.
I'm dying.
He was fucking dying.
He looked like he was dying. He was like shivering. And I was like, all right, let's just work together here. So I had an emergency blanket on the ground in my shelter. So I was like, I'll go get that. We'll put that over Brian. I'll go get my whoopee. And we'll just use Jesse's shelter like a couch and put these blankets over us so that everyone can be warm. And, that's what we did. It worked for a little bit, but I couldn't get Brian to just go back to my shelter with me and share the blanket. So instead, we all had to suffer and be cold.
So basically,
your shelter and have a little intimate rape.
Yes.
so like I was perfectly comfy with my fire, everything. Everyone else could fuck off. I'm doing fine. And next thing you know, I got Jon in there. Brian's in his shelter dying. So we get Brian in between us. And, we're trying to just, everyone stay warm. And so we laid there, but we didn't lay down at all. We were like in a couch position,
we were
all
reclined.
3 of us. And I had to keep getting up throughout the night, getting firewood. We slept maybe a total of 2 hours
Combined.
And that was,
we
and
kept getting firewood.
Even that was split up.
Well, the worst part was you and I kept getting up to get firewood because Brian was so cold he just
was
didn't
not
get
moving.
up.
I couldn't.
But the problem was I was at the edge of the shelter, so my butt was not on your whoopee, and my head was not covered by the poncho. So I'm just like trying to use the edge of my blanket to keep myself warm.
And whatever heat Brian is putting off was all Jon had.
Yeah, so Brian had his feet sitting like in the fire and just melted his boots.
Like I stayed primarily warm, and like if I get cold, like I had to go get wood or something, like just getting up and collecting wood would warm me up enough. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, that was actually a nice.
It wasn't like so cold that no matter what you did, you were just cold. Mm-hmm. It was just, if you tried to relax, to go to sleep,
you let your
were
heart
gonna
rate
get
slow.
cold. Yeah.
But what we hadn't realized was that the forecast had changed and the low was actually 36 that night, not 46.
Yeah. So it got
And
plenty
you guys,
cold.
it was really, I was comfortable, but you guys kept waking me up every time you kept cutting wood. You guys were very
How considerate to you sleeping in your sleeping bag?
I knew that. I was over by your tent cutting down saplings. Like, I don't give a fuck.
She's the only one that brought a fucking sleeping bag.
Yeah.
That's what I figured. The old man would be smart enough to do it.
Capitalism for the win. I bought my comfort for the night.
I was comfortable. I would have been perfectly fine.
Well, I mean, if we wanted to camp for comfort, we could easily just bring tents, sleeping bags, all that stuff. But the whole idea is as primitive as possible.
Yeah, and my setup would have kept me just fine. I would have been able to lay out, been comfortable. But no, we had to make sure Brian did not die of hypothermia that night.
Because, well, he could have actually died at that temperature.
Yeah.
And
he could have gotten at least very sick.
But I think that that's actually bonus points. We had shelters that we could have been fine in, but we used knowledge to cuddle together for warmth. We had a survival cuddle, which gives us bonus points because Brian is cold when he's willing to cuddle with us. Like, Brian will not cuddle you under any circumstance unless there's like threat of death.
Yeah.
It was
very close.
He was that cold.
Warm boy.
Dude, we were at the point where we're all sharing a blanket, and when somebody farted, we'd say, "Oh, free heat." It was incredible. It was so cold, but we got up at like
I was sweating in my
you're forgetting all the
we had to lay there so uncomfortable
listening to you snore. It was the most condescending snore.
Like, I wanted to
No, because you snore in the weirdest way. It's like a groan. You're like,
yeah. It was like, look, he even complains in his sleep.
The idea had honestly been thrown that we should just drop a fucking sapling on him while he's sleeping. Like, every time we go to cut wood, we just throw a stick at him.
I just go up there to his little hooch he made and just cut all the ties so it all just falls down on him.
Well, we got up at 4:30 because that was our last wake up from like an actual little nap we got. And we were like, you know what, sun's gonna be up soon. Let's just pack up and get cleaned up.
You're forgetting all the animals
so we can get out quick. Oh yeah,
all the beautiful animal sounds.
Yeah, we heard
terror. when you can't
they were
see.
just
It wasn't
coyotes.
terror, but like it was really close. There was this point where Jesse and I both woke up to the sound of like
Like a pack of coyotes.
a lot of coyotes just going at something. And we're like, whoa. And we didn't think Brian was awake. And he leans up and he just says,
That's unnerving. Because they were
Yeah.
yipping and howling, and they caught something.
they
Consistently.
were very close
They
too.
were like for at least 2 minutes, they were consistently just
They were hunting
yipping
virgins. You were in trouble.
Yeah. They and then they got done with all their yips, and then it was a big howl, and then it was like quiet, and you're like,
what the hell's going on?
Let's go back to sleep.
And then like every now and again, like you would hear like some leaves crackling behind my shelter, and we were like, "Oh, what the fuck is that?"
Yeah, well, because I
Oh,
was
God.
worried that the way that you guys built your shelters into that little like hill thing, and then covered them with sticks and leaves, that an animal would just run across it thinking it was ground,
Right.
and then we'd wake up to like a deer on top of us.
Well, like I didn't worry about that so much because there was a trail right behind our shelter that was running parallel, so
Yeah.
it's like they're gonna stay on the trail.
The nice thing out there is that the animal trails were like super clear and dug in, like you
Well.
knew where they were going.
Yeah.
You worried that he was
But-
going to die out there?
We woke up at like 4:30 and we packed up all our stuff, and I was like, we should just take all of it to the truck and then just stand around by Jason waiting for him to wake up and be like, what are you doing? Come on, pack up. All our stuff's in the truck.
It's like
Which is basically what you did.
It is basically what we did, because we had to wait an hour and a half for Jason. Yes, it was an hour and a half from when you
An
woke
hour.
up to when you actually got packed and we got on the road.
Yeah.
It was an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we waited
Exactly.
because we were all packed up and just sitting there, and of course we had to wait for you to tear all your stuff.
We're
down.
still cold. I'm
Oh, yeah.
wrapped
Well-
in a piss-covered whoopee.
I was like,
Well, at one point in the middle of the night, I went to pee and I wrapped it around myself and somehow got pee all over it.
I'm sure that helped a lot in keeping you warm as it,
They
cooled
dry
off
out
and,
so
They
fast.
kept the animals away.
Those whoopies
But no,
are amazing.
I slept comfortably through the night.
Yeah.
I woke up a few times to hear you
you
guys
still didn't-
making noise, but,
in the primitive front, you came in last place.
but I completed every goal put before me. I built a shelter. I started a fire without cheating. I caught my own food and fed myself with that food.
That's true.
And I stayed in my own shelter without assistance all night.
So when do you want to do it again?
Never.
The reigning champion.
That's the thing.
That makes you lose right there.
The reigning champion has to go back.
Because I am ready to
The
go.
fact that you did all of those things, but you hated it so much.
I need a lot of exercise before I attempt that again. Like I said, I was dead before we reached the campsite.
Go
You
rucking.
need a lot of exercise.
What you need to do
Don't
every
try to qualify it.
Oh, no, I know. I have
what
no
you should
exercise.
do is get your pack and keep it packed
And just walk
and go
around.
for walks with the pack on.
Yeah, people start reporting the homeless guy
they
walking
say
through the
that it's
neighborhood.
about 3/4 the level of calorie burn that you would get running.
Right.
So it's a lot better than just walking. Just throw your pack on your back and go for a walk.
I mean, you can
Well,
take.
but let's start with walking first.
You live
and
across
then-
the street pretty much from a park with great walking trails.
Yeah. They're uphill, downhill.
You mean
Yep.
like you can take the sleeping bag off so it's not smacking you in the back of the knees?
Yeah, you don't
Let's
need
get
to
him a
sleep.
weight vest. They can wear.
Yeah.
All right.
Man, I want one of
so
those.
best shelter we agreed was
Jesse's because
shelter.
it was our combined couch.
It's what kept everyone alive.
Yeah.
The couch.
I think you all
think we
hated my
all-
shelter.
I think for various reasons we all had the best shelter in different ways.
Well,
Because Brian's was really interesting and really comfortable during the day, like to hang out in.
Mhm.
Jesse's was a great lay down warm spot that was a nice couch to fit all three of us. Yours was bought
Bullshit.
and you could have configured it in any way.
yeah.
And mine was built, not bought. And so for that, I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. We just don't know the viability of it through the entire night because you didn't stay in it.
I was fine when I was in it
True.
So,
yeah.
because I
But
actually
you also
thought
still had a fire at
I
that point,
actually
too.
thought to bring blankets.
Brian.
Brian just didn't think. He had plenty of water.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He didn't have plenty of water. He ran out of water at like 4 o'clock and had to drink mine.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sucked
Oh.
that camel That Camelback track.
Remember we had that
So you
whole
failed
argument?
at everything, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just underpacked.
Yeah.
That's all it
I mean,
is.
yeah, well,
Like,
yeah,
I
he
think
still
if
built a
Brian
good-
was packed
That
well,
is
he would have
failing.
done great.
Yeah, he still
Yeah.
built
Yeah,
a good
That is
shelter.
failing.
I
Yeah.
had like a day to pack.
And
so I
like
just went-
the majority of the firewood probably came from him
Yeah.
because he just enjoyed hitting things.
At least what we had in the evening.
Yeah.
We
I
burned through
brought-
all that.
I brought the exact amount of water that I needed because, like, I brought a 3-liter camel pack, drank all of it, and I also bought 3 bottles of water just in case I drank all of that. And like at the moment we stepped foot to go back to the truck and actually leave, I was like, I'm out of water. So
That's perfect.
yeah,
I brought enough water that, well, I probably would have been okay if I drank it.
oh yeah,
But instead, I ended up having so much left over, we put the fires out with it
yeah.
because I just
Didn't you put it out with
Yeah,
coffee?
I mean,
didn't
your
have time to drink.
I was also making coffee. I
Yeah,
gave
the
you
coffee was great. Yeah, twice.
I gave you coffee out of my water too.
Yeah. My only complaint about you and Brian's structures was that because you dug in, you had a serious bug problem.
I didn't have.
Dude, I was
recall
getting
bugs.
spiders all over me.
Were you?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was
I don't
not at
recall.
all.
You remember when we were eating and we were just sitting down? I had 2 spiders on me.
Oh.
And then my bag that I kept in Brian's shelter, like for the second half of the night, it was full of spiders.
Really?
I didn't have any spiders on
I
my
don't
shit.
recall
I did.
fucking with
I had a lot.
Maybe you had some
But then again, I
spider
was sitting
tracking.
on the dirt and not
Yeah.
on the whoopee.
Yeah.
Let's say, as far as feeding ourselves, my bass did way better in his.
Oh, I think you won on the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even with what you brought, because you brought enough food for 4 people. And
Well,
it was
yeah, well-
about the size of an MRE.
Right.
Because it was freeze dried, it was so small.
Right.
You know?
And then, other than that, I think that's all the goals. I mean, you wanted to have a chair carving contest.
I wanted to build chairs.
but that wasn't going to happen.
They're
for
just
me.
we didn't have enough energy. Like next time, there's a lot more little crafty things we can get into when we already have our shelters established and things like that. But this time we had so much
I would
labor
say-
in the day.
I'd say
Jason
let's
actually
get
has to
there-
build a shelter next time.
We'll get there earlier.
Fuck you.
Brian and I probably burned 15,000 calories apiece that day.
And I sat at the edge of a pond holding a fish.
Yeah, because like the shelter building, and then like how much ground we covered going hunting, and
Mhm.
it was exhausting.
But no
My
casualties.
hands hurt for like 4 days after.
I burnt my thumb. Like I still have like a big blister on my thumb.
Oh, nice. I have a from
Yes.
real right here from using the hatchet.
It's
I
all-
busted a callus
all,
open
like,
and it was bleeding.
Yeah, so you remember when I accidentally stuck my hand in your fire when I was sitting next to it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I turns it like nothing. My hand's fine.
No. I got a good burn blister on my thumb.
No,
All right.
I had
So,
burned
how
this
do we wrap this
finger.
one up?
we're not dead.
The way we always do.
Have fun, everybody.